back on the record in the Geyser case, same appearances and case number. We were reviewing the status of Ms. Portman's testimony. Let me ask Attorney Conton what the status of the situation is.
Yes, Judge. I don't know if you want to do a colloquy with Ms. Geyser, but she would orally give her release for Ms. Portman to speak about their therapy.
All right, Ms. Geyser, you understand that Ms. Portman, your contact with Ms. Portman is subject to rules that make it confidential.
Yes, sir.
So if she talks about it here in court, it's not only between Ms. Portman and me and you and the attorneys, but all the people in the courtroom hear it, and it's the proceedings are being can be broadcast and it can be outstanding.
Yes, sir.
And so whatever is said will be out in the public domain, as they say. People will know about it. And sometimes confidential information you don't want out. It's between you and the doctor, you and the professional, you and Ms. Portman.
I give my permission, sir.
You do. You understand you could say no.
I do, sir.
And you talked to your attorney about that?
Yes, sir.
Satisfied with Attorney Cotton's advice?
Yes, sir.
Satisfied with him as your attorney?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that's fine, thank you. I'll then authorize that I'm satisfied then, Ms. Portman, that Ms. Geyser has released you from any rules of confidentiality with regard to your testimony today. You can proceed. So we'll go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Portman, I'm just going to ask a few pretty specific questions. And to clarify, you would be considered part of Ms. Geyser's treatment team with Winnebago Mental Health Institution, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As part of the treatment team, were you aware that Ms. Geyser enjoyed reading material that had themes involving sexual sadism?
No.
Is that interest something that has ever been worked on in therapy with Ms. Geyser?
Not with me.
Okay. Was the treatment team aware that Ms. Geyser's interest in reading material that had themes of murder and organ selling on the black market was something that was occurring?
I can't speak to what the treatment team knew.
Okay. Did you know these things?
No.
Okay. So that was never addressing the affinity for these types of themed literature. It was not something that you've addressed with Ms. Geyser in therapy.
No.
So if the conditional release planning team wanted to try to mitigate risk in some way and come to you, you would have no insight in terms of treatment that's been done with Ms. Geyser about those topics.
Correct.
Okay. In terms of this individual, Jeffrey Pagels, were you aware of Ms. Geyser's relationship with him?
I've heard his name mentioned before in therapy.
Okay. Was information relayed to you that Ms. Geyser wanted to be sexually intimate with this person?
No.
Was information relayed to you that this person was sexually aroused by Ms. Geyser's index offense?
No.
Were you aware that Ms. Geyser was sending this individual letters or cards?
Yeah, I want to clarify, I did find out recently since the filing of the petition.
Okay.
But prior, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of in a therapeutic clinical setting, these are not things that would have been addressed between you and Ms. Geyser?
Correct.
Okay. What about, has there been work done between you and Ms. Geyser in terms of her affinity for violent or dark artwork?
Ms. Geyser has shared her artwork with me.
Okay, and are you aware that pieces of art that Ms. Geyser drew were sent to this person, Mr. Pagels?
I've since learned that some of her art was sent out.
Were you ever shown artwork that Ms. Geyser did that depicts a decapitated type figure with blood coming out of the neck area? Does that sound like something that you've ever seen?
No,
Does that type of style or material sound consistent with artwork you've seen that Ms. Geyser has shown you?
no,
Is Ms. Geyser's interest in creating that type of artwork something that you've worked on with her in therapy?
no.
One moment. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Ms. Portman.
Uh,
How long have you been Ms. Geyser's therapist?
About 1 year.
Okay, and you work inside Winnebago Mental Health Facility, right?
Yes, I do.
And you remember testifying at the conditional release hearing a couple of months ago, right?
Yes,
And as Ms. Geyser's therapist, it's your job to provide her with one-on-one and as well as group therapy. Is that correct?
yes,
And those are two different types of therapy. Group is with other individuals, and then one-on-one is more of a private experience, right?
yes.
And do you have any concerns as you sit here today over Morgan's behavior in therapy?
No,
Even now, as you sit here right now today, knowing everything you know, are you concerned at all about Morgan's attitude or behavior in therapy?
no,
What about just in general, speaking about Morgan as a person? Are you somehow now alarmed that there's risk factors now that you were unaware of? Is that how you feel?
no,
Okay. So as I understand it, the judge had ordered a conditional release plan to be put into place, right? You're aware of that after the last hearing?
yes,
And isn't it true that part of the therapy that you were working on then with Morgan was working with her on that transition to the community?
yes,
Because that's something that you wanted to have happen for her, right?
yes,
And in fact, as you sit here today, it's something that you still want to happen for her, right?
yes,
There's no new red flag that's so alarming to you as a therapist that you think you need more therapy with Morgan at Winnebago, right?
no,
So, and that's knowing this information. The state asked you about Morgan's reading themes. The book we're talking about, this Rent Boy book, you are now aware she read that book, right?
yes.
Has there ever been a rule of therapy or that she can't read certain material?
No,
Are you aware of is she subject to any such rules that she can't read a particular genre or a particular type of book at Winnebago?
no,
So there's no restrictions, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
And you would agree that you and Morgan have a good relationship, at least you would see it that way, right?
Yes,
And now that is part of the therapy that every time she comes in to meet with you, Morgan talks about the last book she read in the last couple of days, or how do you guys handle her choice of reading material?
if she chooses to share what she's reading, she might share what she's interested in or what she's reading. I don't specifically ask about it.
You've gotten to know her very well over the last year, right?
Yes,
You know that Morgan is a very bright young woman, right?
yes,
And you know that she's very well read, isn't she?
yes,
You also know that at Winnebago, there's no internet access that she has, right?
correct.
So she's not on the internet, on Facebook or any other site, interacting with people who are posting stuff, as far as you know, right?
Yes,
And Miss Geyser is interested in all sorts of reading material, from historical fiction to current fiction to Catcher in the Rye and Van Gogh and all sorts of things. You're aware of that?
yes,
Because you guys have talked about that as part of your getting to know each other. One way to get to know someone as a therapist is ask them what they're interested in, right?
yes,
And that's a normal part of therapy, isn't it? That as a therapist, you try to develop a rapport with the person that you're treating.
yes,
So if somebody that you're treating is really interested in movies, you might want to know, you might talk to them about movies or things like that, right?
yes.
And have you ever felt like Morgan withholds information from you in this year that you've treated her? Do you feel like you have to pry information out of her in therapy, or would you describe her as somebody who discloses and reports what she does?
Yes, she's discloses and reports. She comes in ready to talk regularly.
And I think it's important to cover this topic, ma'am. After reading this book, Rent Boy, that has these concerning themes, or these gory themes, did you notice a regression in Morgan such that you were alarmed that perhaps she had read something disturbing and was now experiencing trauma in therapy, or no?
I have not seen any regression from her since I've been working with her. I don't know when she read the book.
Okay, so in the year you've been working with her, you've not noticed any regression based on anything she's read. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Now, a person named Jeff Pagel, who you said you were aware of because his name has been mentioned in therapy before, right?
yes,
This is not a current person that Miss Geyser is having contact with, as you understand it, right?
yes, correct.
His name came up as somebody that she didn't want to have contact with. That's what you recall, isn't it?
Yes,
And it was her bringing up Jeffrey Pagel to you, right?
yes,
That's how you learn about it in therapy, because Morgan, as the patient, is disclosing something that she's concerned about that she wishes to talk through with you, right?
yes,
And then you talk through it and figure out whether it's something that requires more discussion or more treatment, right?
correct.
And have you had ma'am, I don't know if you've had a chance, but have you had a chance to read the petition that was filed to revoke Miss Geyser's conditional release?
No, I haven't read it.
Okay. And is there anything as you sit here now that causes you to recommend to the court that she needs more institutional therapy?
I don't believe I can make that opinion. I don't, make an opinion on whether or not she's ready to leave or should stay longer.
Okay. Is there a new treatment plan that you think needs to be developed with her because she had some historical contact with Pagel, or because she read this Rent Boy literature?
No,
Nothing.
correct.
That's all.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, I should say this is,
Redirect.
right, it's actually redirect, excuse me.
Ms. Portman, I think that you testified that really there was not a lot of discussion about Ms. Geyser's interest in terms of reading material during therapy. True?
Not a lot, just casual conversation about Van Gogh. We talked about Van Gogh quite a bit.
But Ms. Geyser never offered to you, you know, hey, I'm reading this book and right now the characters are selling human organs on the black market. That was not a casual discussion that you had, right?
Correct.
And you've now testified that that's not a concern, you don't believe that that's concerning, right?
Correct.
You're aware that historically, Ms. Geyser has been fixated on fictional characters, right?
Yes.
And the index offense was directly related to a fictional character named Slender Man. You're aware of that, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that in Ms. Geyser's history, she was also fixated on literary characters, right? From Harry Potter books.
Yes.
And you know that the index offense was, at least for a part of time, reportedly due to adherence of the wishes of those fictional people, right?
I'm not real clear on that remote past. I've really worked with her in the present time. I can speak better to what work she's done in the past year and where she's been at mentally in the past year.
But don't you think that someone with that history, it would be very, very important to monitor what types of fictional characters they are relating to and interested in?
I was more attuned to her mental status, her mental health, how she was presenting, whether she was delusional or psychotic or anxious. We coped with grief and family and relationships in her present environment in the past year.
And you testified that you, for the most part, felt like Ms. Geyser was an accurate reporter with you and appeared stable, right?
Yes.
You're also aware that at a point in time, Ms. Geyser reported that all of the symptomology surrounding her schizophrenia was things she had made up.
I'm sorry, this is so far beyond the scope at this point, Your Honor.
Well, it's beyond the scope of the cross to an extent, but yet we're going into detail on therapy and on contact with Ms. Geyser. So I'll overrule the objection. I think it's necessary to go forward. I find it's within the scope of cross.
Do you need me to restate the question, Ms. Portman?
Please.
You're aware that Ms. Geyser has reported that she feigned symptoms of schizophrenia and never suffered from a mental disease or defect at the time of the index offense.
We talked about that in therapy.
Do you think that it's possible that there's a risk underlying the stability that you see from Ms. Geyser in your therapy with her?
Do I think that there's a risk? Oh, can you restate that?
Sure. Now knowing that Ms. Geyser has an interest in the types of artwork that we've talked about, decapitated figures, and the type of fiction we've talked about, murder and sexual sadism, do you have any concern that the presentation that you're seeing from Ms. Geyser in therapy is not accurately reflecting what's going on.
I don't. I saw somebody who was, who I interpreted as being very authentic and processing authentic emotion and thoughts and relating to her environment and bringing that into the therapy session and processing it. I saw, that's what I saw.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Ms. Portman. That's all I have.
Any recross?
Yes, briefly. Is there a rule of therapy that she's supposed to bring up every one of the books that she reads and talk to you about it?
No.
Okay. And you've now had a chance to look into this, the book Rent Boy, and it's not something that raises any concerns to you as her treatment provider, right?
Right.
That's all.
Any further direct?
No, thank you.
Ms. Portman, what is your educational background?
I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a master's degree in social work.
And how long have you been working at Winnebago?
15 years or 14 years. 15 years with the state.
So have you been you said you've been a part of Ms. Geyser's treatment team for the last year?
Yes.
Before that, were you involved in other treatment teams involving other individuals at Winnebago?
Yes. Yes.
How many other individuals have you been involved in as a treatment team member with?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds for 15 years. So.
All right, I have no other questions. Any questions to the witness based upon my questions from the state?
No, thank you.
Attorney Cotton, anything from you?
No.
All right, thank you. And then Ms. Portman, thanks for being here. I appreciate your time.